This is Sharon Laborde. From time to time on the program, we'll be taking a look at some of the many cultural opportunities available to us here in the Ozark Mountains of northwest Arkansas and Missouri. And I'll be discussing background information that will hopefully be informative and enrich your appreciation of all that our area has to offer. Our subject today is an iconic American artist, Charles Wilson Peale, who during his lifetime painted portraits of many of our founding fathers. One of the best known of these portraits is in the permanent collection at Crystal Bridges Museum in Bentonville, Arkansas, a work of art in its own right, built on Walton family property in an idyllic Ozark setting. That's correct, I said Arkansas, and if you live in the Midwest, it's well worth the drive to see famous works of art up close and personal, and walk along the trails that surround the museum. In fact, even if you don't live close by, you should plan a visit to our beautiful area. There's no cost to view the permanent collections or to walk the 3 miles of nature trails. General admission is free and is underwritten by Walmart. The museum, a unique architectural design of glass, metal, and wood, blends with the natural landscape of the Arkansas woods and the stream that runs through the property. But once you step inside and tour the galleries, the visitor can't help but be impressed by the scope of the collection. From the colonial period to the present, the works of major American artists line the walls, a surprise at every turn, leaving the viewers almost breathless. Visitors from across the country and around the world are overheard expressing their surprise and pleasure as they see a favorite work up close. And that's what happened to me when I saw the portrait of George Washington by Charles Wilson Peale. I was with a group of high school students and couldn't help but gasp, audibly enough, for several of them to look at me with concern and ask if I was okay. "Don't you realize what's hanging here in front of you?" I asked. They gave me the look. You know, the one that seems to say, "Oh no, here she goes again," accompanied with the eye roll. Well, I couldn't help but be excited, even if they were blasé. They'll remember seeing it when they're old enough to appreciate that it's actually here in the Ozarks. I told them what little I knew about the artist, just enough to make me realize I needed to learn more about him myself. By the way, I should mention that Crystal Bridges is a teaching museum and hosts organized tours for school groups with guides who inform and engage the students in discussions about the works of art. For many, it's their first experience going to a museum. But back to the portrait of George Washington and the artist. Charles Wilson Peale was born in 1741 and died in 1827. 86 years, an exceptionally long life for the time. He was not only a painter, but a soldier, scientist, inventor, politician, and a naturalist. He is best remembered, however, for his paintings of the leading figures in the American Revolution and for establishing one of the first museums in America. He was born in Maryland and at a young age tried his hand at a number of professions with very little success. Finally, he discovered his talent for painting, especially portraiture, and began a serious study with a number of prominent artists, the most famous of which was John Singleton Copley and Benjamin West. After completing his studies, he taught painting to his younger brother, James Peale, who also became a noted artist. In 1776, he was in Philadelphia, where he painted portraits of American notables and visitors from overseas and became prosperous. His estate, which is on the campus of LaSalle University in Philadelphia, is open to the public. During the War of Independence, he helped raise troops and gained the rank of captain in the Pennsylvania militia and fought in several battles. While in the field, he continued to paint, doing miniature portraits of officers in the Continental Army, which he enlarged in later years. After the war, he served in the Pennsylvania State Assembly for several years before returning to painting full-time. He was a prolific painter, doing portraits of Ben Franklin, John Hancock, Thomas Jefferson, and Alexander Hamilton, but he is best known for his portraits of George Washington. Washington sat for him 7 times over the years, and Peale used these sittings as models for close to 60 portraits of the first president. What amazes me about Peale is that he was interested in such a broad range of subjects: botany, carpentry, dentistry, optometry, shoemaking, and taxidermy, and displayed an expertise in all of these disciplines. He wrote 2 books, one on building wooden bridges and another on how to preserve good health. And somehow, in this busy life, he found time to marry 3 times and father 16 children. His sons were all named after famous artists or scientists, and he taught them to paint. 3 of them, Rembrandt, Raphael, and Titian Peale, became famous artists in their own right. What a fascinating man! And what an inspiration for our young people today who complain about being bored if they're not plugged into an electronic device. Yes, the Crystal Bridges Museum should be on your bucket list. From the beginning, Alice Walton's vision was to establish a collection spanning every major period in American art, from the colonial period to the modern era, and house these treasures in the mid-part of the country, what some Americans jokingly call the flyover zone. An internet search of the George Washington portrait by Charles Wilson Peale will reveal that its purchase in May of 2004 for a little over $6 million, along with other purchases of well-known American paintings from public museums, universities, and a notable public library, stirred up quite a furor in the Northeast. And the controversy didn't end with the Washington portrait. New York art patrons, students, and guardians of culture were shocked in 2005 when the New York Library sold the famous Hudson River School painting Kindred Spirits by Asher Durand to Alice Walton for $35 million. There was a public outcry. Works of art were being spirited away to Arkansas, of all places. I can understand how painful the loss of great works of art can be, especially those that have been on public view for so long and are part of the cultural identity of a particular area of the country. Kindred Spirits was a loss for New York. But when public institutions are so strapped for cash that they have to part with their treasures, I'm glad that at least it's on display where people can still see it, rather than in a private collection. As for the portrait of Washington, doesn't he belong to all the citizens of this country, even those of us who live in the flyover zone? In other news, I'm pleased to announce the release of my new book, Carolina's Secret, in both a print and an ebook format. Carolina's Secret is a carefully researched work of historical fiction that will appeal to middle and high school readers and those interested in the wholesale removal of the Cherokee from their ancestral home to Indian Territory. It is available at Amazon and at cahabapress.com. I'm so pleased you could join me today on Welcome to the Conversation. I would love hearing from you. You may email me at publisher@cahabapress.com. ozarkradiohour.com, and please visit us at ozarkradiohour.com and like and share us with your social media. I'll be back next week with a few more ideas about writing, interviews with fascinating people, and reports on the creative spirit that is alive and well here in the beautiful Ozark Mountains of northwest Arkansas and Missouri. Until next time, this is Sharon Laborde, Cultural Editor of Ozark Radio Hour,